Hi, I'm Robert Begley with day 182 of my video challenge. When you think of martial arts, one name should come to mind: Bruce Lee. Ah, the man revolutionized so many different fields. He created his own system called Jun King Do, which means the way of the intercepting fist. So before Bruce Lee, there was traditional karate from the Japanese and judo, and kung fu was not that well known, but in China it did have meaning, but it was mostly for demonstration. And what Bruce Lee did was he started to add actual contact in his kung fu. And the reason being was that instead of doing this for demonstration, he wanted to simulate if you're in a jam and if people are surrounding you, how do you get out of this without pulling out like a weapon? And this was radical. It had never been done before. And because Lee was so good at this, he attracted many students, many famous students: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Steve McQueen, James Coburn, famous Hollywood actors. And finally, after decades of, he was an actor as a child in Hong Kong, but after finally breaking through to the world with Enter the Dragon, when Enter the Dragon came out, he became a household name. That is I love this movie. But even earlier, when I was a kid, I remember watching him as Kato on Batman, the old Batman television series with Burt Ward, and oh boy, I can't even remember the other guy's name. But I remember when Batman and Robin was supposed to fight Kato and the Green Hornet, and we laughed because it ended up being like a draw. But my brothers would tell me Kato could have beaten Batman, Robin, and everybody in Gotham City. And so it's one of the benefits of having older brothers, because they knew a lot more about Bruce Lee than I did. I was a bit young, but I do remember when he died, 1973. I remember asking my brother Damien, who was a big fan, what happened? And he said that he told me at the time, like, some Chinese gangsters beat him up and killed him because he was sharing their secrets by opening his schools. But the thing that appeals to me about Bruce Lee, there were many, but just his mind-body integration. This was the main thing, because he studied philosophy in the University of Washington when he came back to America. He was actually born in San Francisco, lived until he was roughly 20 years old in Hong Kong, was a child actor. And because he got into too many fights, they just thought it was better for him to go away to the United States. So he goes to college, studies philosophy, and disagrees with a lot of the ancient Eastern and Western philosophers, and starts coming up with many of his own ideas. But self-expression, I mean, one of his famous expressions is "be like water." And the point there is that if you fill water into a glass, it conforms to the glass. If you overflow it and just keep pouring water, that's what he talks about, like braggarts who are just full of themselves, then it becomes useless. There's a waste. But if you pour water into a teacup, you can have tea. And he called it was powerful and it was subtle. That's what water was. It could be a tsunami, or it could just be like a little ripple in a pond. Back in 2009, I went to the northwestern part of the U.S. for the first time. It was Oregon, Washington State, and Alaska. And I flew into Seattle. Guess what happened? It's raining. I rented a car. You know where I went? First place I went, before even going to visit my friend, Bruce Lee's grave. and the weather's awful. It's raining lightly, then it comes down a little more, and I'm trying to find the place. Finally, I find the grave site, and I totally forgot. I was so focused on seeing Bruce Lee, I totally forgot that Brandon, his son, is buried right next to him. What a tragedy. 2 lives cut short. Then in 2012, I went to Hong Kong and to the place where he lived much of his life. And Madame Tussauds, that famous wax museum, they had, the only reason I wanted to go to this museum was to see the image of him in the Game of Death. That's the yellow jumpsuit with the black stripe going down the side. And as soon as I get online, I have laser beam vision. I see way in the distance this little placard that says the following wax figures are being refurbished. Bruce Lee. I said, what? Bruce Lee is not here? I came all the way from New York. Everybody online just stood looking at me dumbfounded. Well, the next day, I decided to go across the bay to this island that has this awesome statue of Bruce Lee. And actually, this is better than the Game of Death. Game of Death is a nice jumpsuit, but you have to see his muscles. If there's a picture of Bruce Lee, you have to see the ripped muscles in, the six-pack to work. So that made my trip. It was to fly all the way around the globe. Well, first I flew to Seattle to see his gravesite, and then I flew all the way to Hong Kong. Do you think I like the guy a little bit? We'll cover Bruce Lee this week on the Hero Show. Yesterday would have been his 80th birthday. Yeah, 81st birthday. So just a hero, Bruce Lee. Thank you for what you've done, and we'll see you tomorrow with day 183 of the video challenge.